Bet19, your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs right here at sportsbookreviewcom. Day 2 of March Madness. He's Teddy Savransky. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Seymour at Right Side VP. A lot went on yesterday, Teddy, and a lot of these games came right down to the wire. Not just with games where the one team had to win, but the covers came into place as well. Ja Morant posted a triple-double in the roasting of Marquette, Teddy. No shame in my game. I thought Marquette would come to play in that game. Ja Morant and Murray State were fantastic. It wasn't for a little run in the first half where Marquette slightly took the lead. They were the better team all game long yesterday, Teddy. A fun day overall, though, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk March Madness? Yesterday, legitimate madness. And of course, we didn't see the outright upsets all over the place. But we saw something pretty rare when you're talking about 7 different teams. 7 teams winning and not covering? Nova won and didn't cover. And that was point spread mayhem at the end. Purdue won, depending on where you bet them, 12.5, 13, 13.5, won or didn't cover. Florida State chokes it away late and then doesn't go for the layup, up 7, pulls away from the basket, runs out the clock. Seminoles backers, pulling their hair out in a game they probably were supposed to cover. Maryland rallies late, can't hit the free throw that matters. Win by only 2. LSU gives up 3 3-pointers to Yale in the final, 45 seconds of that game. That was the difference between LSU covering and not covering. The biggest choke job of all was Auburn. You talk about a team that tried everything they could to lose the game in the last 3 or 4 minutes. The Tigers did that. Of course, New Mexico State missed free throws, and lo and behold, Auburn survives in advance, winning by only 1. So no shortage of point spread insanity yesterday. We talk a lot about handicapping skills. We don't talk enough about betting skills, but the difference between every half point matters. And these lines are tight. Talk to anyone that bet Purdue yesterday. They'll tell you how much every half point matters. This is a time of year where we know the lines are tight. Bet smart. And for God's sakes, use Sportsbook Review. Get yourself more outs than you already have. You have 2 outs, get 3. You have 3 outs, get 4. You have 4 outs, get 12. The half points make a difference. Very much on display in opening round action yesterday.
You know, it was crazy even watching those games as they went down because there's so many ways that they could have won. Like, even if you looked at the Florida State game, Teddy, where they come down the court, they could have dunked it. But there was still like 7 or 8 seconds to go where they peeled off to the corner, which a lot of the times you see these young kids just run over and slap the foul, say, we're going to play this all the way to the end. They walk it out. And if you have it either way, you have your heart in your chest because we've seen it in the past, Teddy, under 10 seconds to go where they run around, nobody wants to foul, and all of a sudden, a rogue player comes over with 3 seconds to go and creates the hack foul. The other interesting one, too, Teddy, is I had Belmont. And actually, technically had a bad line at +3. It would have been better to have the 3.5. But even at the end of the ball game, when Belmont is down 1, they have the basketball, they turn it over, 2.5 seconds to go. So, of course, you're praying for that miss. But the one thing that was interesting is when you always deal with the 3-point game in under 5 seconds, what would have happened, Teddy, if he made the last free throw for a 3 and you say, all right, I get a push? Because Belmont probably would have inbounded the ball, would have got fouled right away from Maryland. So that sets up that whole line. Like, do you miss the free throw because you need a 3? There's not enough time left. So I feel like that last miss saved my butt because if you start getting that free throw competition, 0.2 seconds on the clock, you miss the free throw, it's a foul. They sink 2, it's 4 the other way. So much interesting stuff today that goes either way that we don't see. A missed shot one way, a missed shot the other way. It all lands on it. And always getting the right numbers, you said, Teddy, is very important at SBRodds.com. Betting day 2 of the tournament. Now, here's the important thing. Teddy's the old sage veteran out there in Las Vegas. A lot of us see on TV and say, oh, my goodness. 10-6 yesterday. The Dogs covered yesterday. The interesting part about that is there's no correlation to today, Teddy, right? Just because Dogs covered yesterday doesn't mean there's going to be a run of Dogs today necessarily, right?
Well, let's put it this way. The Dogs went 7-1 in the early games yesterday and went 3-5 in the late games. So, there's your 10-6 run. It was all the early games yesterday. And yeah, we saw 7 teams win but not cover. That's rare on any given day. And when it comes to the NCAA tournament, we might see a few more of those today, but I'd say yesterday's 7 is probably the most, like half what we're going to see for the entire tournament or close to it. It is important to leave day 1 in the rearview mirror because that's yesterday. The conference stuff, on the other hand, is something you can pay attention to. A conference that's looking particularly good, a conference that's looking particularly bad. those are the type of trains I don't necessarily tell people jump off after day one if you're seeing something conference-wise. I'm not sure if you saw anything stand out to you yesterday, Donnie, but that's one thing that I would take over from day one to day two. That's about it, however.
Yeah, Big East train going a little bit off the rack. We'll see if, Villanova can hold the torch. But that, again, was another close one with St. Mary's, which we predicted would be a lower-scoring game, a slow dance, as we like to say. And St. Mary's comes back and gets that late cover in that game. Betting, again, day two of the tournament, easy to get caught up in the runs and stuff. But each and every game, you can't say, it's the same thing, Teddy, where some people say, man, the Dallas Cowboys looked really good last week. I'm going to take it the next week. You got to use the same day-to-day flow that you usually use. And if you took a favorite yesterday, if you rolled with favorites and lost yesterday, hey, look, if you like those games and they meet your numbers and criteria today, there's no reason to fade your own numbers in that one. But, Teddy, one thing you don't want to fade here, and Bovada's helping us out at sportsbookreviewcom, it's the poker tournament on Monday. Registration is currently open now. We've said it each time here on That Betting Show, Teddy. The grand prize, 2 tickets to the Final Four, 2 round-trip flights, 4 nights in a hotel, spending money, and also, even if you don't come in first place, there's a $1,000 prize pool given away, Teddy. If it's free, it's me. Sportsbookreviewcom has you covered, right?
Yeah, and it's not 1 ticket. It's 2 tickets, You can bring a friend. You can bring your wife. You can bring your enemy, hotel room, not 1 night or 2 nights, 4 nights in the hotel. It's a really good tournament. It's a really good setup, and it's absolutely free. Visit sportsbookreview.com for all the details.
Next week, Teddy, we will be going over baseball games and watch what you bet. It's coming up quickly here, and I know, take it out. It was in Tokyo. There was 2 games that nobody saw, so we'll act like it didn't happen. But coming up quickly for us, MLB First Look today on That Betting Show, the Pittsburgh Pirates, Teddy, 2018, 82-79, currently sitting at a 66-1 ticket to win the 2019 World Series. The Pirates win total set just under 80 at 78.5. I like the outfield that they have. I like Dickerson, Marte, and Polanco. But the infield, Teddy, leaves a lot to be desired for me. But the one thing that you're going to lean on for the Pittsburgh Pirates is I like their front-end rotation. I think they have a chance to be a really good pitching staff. But are they going to get enough hits in order to cover that 78.5 total, Teddy?
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird year last year for Pittsburgh because they went into the season thinking rebuild. You get rid of McCutchen, you get rid of Garrett Cole, best offensive player and best pitcher. Face of the franchise, the 2 faces of the franchise. And then all of a sudden, last July, they're picking up pieces. Chris Archer, Keone Kela from Texas out of the bullpen. And they ended up winning 82 games and going over their season win total. It's still only good for a 4th place finish. This NL Central really is a tough division. The Brewers, Cubs, and Cardinals all finished ahead of them. But there's a lot to like about Pittsburgh this year. And again, not a team that's going to be overpriced on a game-in, game-out basis. Perhaps Tyon might be the one guy who, at the top of the rotation, is going to get a lot of betting market attention. Obviously Archer with a guy who has that level of it factor, but he didn't show it a whole lot last year. Pittsburgh's attendance way down last year, down almost 500,000 from where they were just in 2017. There's a bit of pressure on this team, and I think there is a little bit of upside on this team. You talk about some questions on the infield. I don't know they're going to score runs in bunches, but I do think the pitching staff is likely to be pretty good. I like the bullpen for Pittsburgh, and they look like a team in the 500 range, a team that's going to finish in the 500 range that doesn't have a lot of frontline starters. They're going to attract big prices to lay with. Those teams tend to be relatively profitable. I got a modest buy sign on Pittsburgh going into the 2019 campaign.
Segment 2, Teddy, overnight line movers here, the best place on the internet to get all these line moves lighting up like a Christmas tree. It's SBRodds.com. These lines are moving daily. Make sure you're checking it out. The best place on the web. Northern Kentucky, Teddy, line moving down. Pinnacle opens up offshore at -15, down to 12.5 in their game versus Texas Tech. The one common theme that we're seeing here in the tournament, Teddy, is that these double-digit favorites seem to be sliding a little bit lower.
Yeah, and obviously we saw a lot of competitive basketball yesterday. Not so much with the 1 seeds against the 16 seeds, but pretty much every other matchup. I guess Michigan had a pretty easy time with Montana. You know what I mean, though. When we're talking about anything 3 seeds and lower was competitive across the board in day 1, and the market's certainly expecting that for day 2. The Norse are not an elite team by any stretch of the imagination. Texas Tech has these fantastic defensive stats, but the markets seem to be worried about their ability to put the biscuit in the basket. Relatively low total for this ball game, and obviously the money coming for Northern Kentucky. Texas Tech, not a wise guy choice, an early betting action on Friday.
Teddy, number one seed UVA's line dropping. Panic in the streets last year. We have nightmares last year over Maryland, Baltimore County, taking the upset win of the first time a 16 seed knocks down a number one. How about this, Teddy? Chris Offshore opens at minus 24.5. We're now seeing some 21.5s on the board. Is there panic from Gardner-Webb? Can they pull the upset?
Well, I'll tell you what. I talked to a couple of bookmakers here in Las Vegas this week, and there was one common theme. They're like, the public's betting all the favorites, all the number one seeds, all the number two seeds, except for Virginia. The Cavaliers, the memory is long when it comes to a number one seed going down in the first round like the Cavs did last year. Public doesn't trust Virginia. Wise guys aren't in love with laying this big price with the Cavs, hence all the Gardner-Webb money. There's really been no buyback on the Cavaliers, even at 21.5.
Segment number 3, watch what you bet. West Coast teams battle in Ohio. Talk about the pod system, Teddy. Who has home court advantage here? And we're talking about Washington and Utah State. Current line sitting at about minus 3.5. Total 135.5 money line split plus 148 minus 174. 650 tonight from Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio, which I'm watching the game right now on my monitor from Columbus, Ohio. Washington 17-16 against the spread in all line games, 5-4 against the spread as a dog. Only 2-5, Teddy, on neutral court sites. Utah 17-15 against the spread on the season, 14-11 against the spread as a favorite, and 3-2 in March. What's going to give in this one?
Who's got the home court edge? The home court edge goes to the smaller school in games where there is no home court edge, which means if Utah State's hanging around, they will pick up the crowd support. That's just the way that it works. Everyone's rooting for the Dogs if they don't already have an opinion on the ball game, and that was likely to be the case for at least a decent percentage of the crowd today. Now, here's Washington. They were the regular season champs of a Power 5 school, and they got a 9 seed. Which tells you all you need to know about the Washington Huskies and the state of the Pac-12 this year. It was not a great year for this conference. Now, Washington, this is a lot of guys that are going to be gone. 5 of their top 6 players are going bye-bye after this year. Breakthrough season for Mike Hopkins and company, and a difficult matchup in one regard for Utah State. Utah State doesn't see zone defenses, let alone a very difficult zone, Boeheim's 2-3 matchup zone, which obviously Hopkins learned as a Syracuse assistant for a couple of decades. Utah State only faced zone defenses about 11% of the time this season. They really haven't seen a lot, so that could be a problem. They scored fairly well in that limited exposure against zones, 82nd percentile in offensive efficiency, but this is a different zone than they've seen before, and it's a Huskies team that I wouldn't sell short in this I'm surprised at all the love for Utah State. I wasn't interested in this game near Pick'em at 3.5. I think there is some value on the Washington Huskies.
Yeah, always tough to see that matchup zone. As a basketball purist, Teddy, I like when the 2-3 matchup zone goes down for the count, like last night Baylor handled Syracuse. We'll see if that filters over today. And the last of the matchup 2-3 zones exits the tournament. We'll see. But again, you're talking about the Pac-12 that didn't have a great year, but also a nice start to the tournament with Arizona State, who's going to take on Buffalo a little bit later today. Also, number 1 overall seed Duke going to make a run with the Bison. And Teddy, notice I said Bison, not Bison. I don't want to disrespect the people up there in North Dakota State. Minus 26.5 total, 148.5 money line split plus 1810, minus 8,000. You looking to launder some money out there? That might be your play out there to take the minus 8,000. NDSU is 15-17 against the spread on the season, 4-8 against the spread as a dog. Obviously coming in as a large dog in this game. Duke 18-16 against the spread on the season, only 4-4 against the spread on neutral courts. Is this one of these games, Teddy, where you press the max and blow them out and get off to a good start, or you take your foot off the gas pedal saying, hey, we don't need style points in this game?
They don't need style points. And Duke has not been necessarily a style point team in the NCAA tournament in the Coach K era. All that being said, it might not matter whether it's style points or not. And really, you look at the metrics for North Dakota State. The number 50 in the country in effective field goal percentage. They're in the top 20 in free throws. They're really good three-point shooting, and 40% of their points come from beyond the arc. So how does Duke match up with that? Oops. Duke's top 10 in defending the three-pointer. So that likely to be a problem. If North Dakota State isn't hitting threes, I don't know where they score in this contest. Now, the question is, Duke's up 20. Duke's up 25. There's 6 minutes left. Is Coach K emptying the bench? Probably. Is that what you want in this situation if you're laying with Duke? Not necessarily. So in this point spread range, I do have concerns about the Blue Devils, but do I expect them to be tested? No. I don't think that North Dakota State is not a giant killer or a giant tester, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of times that we see in the tournament also, Teddy, when you're looking at a spread this big, at the end of the game, let's just say Duke does empty the bench with 5 minutes to go. They still have bench players probably just as good as North Dakota State. But the one thing that you've seen, and you've seen time and time again in the tournament, is if you can shoot the three ball like North Dakota State can do that, late in the game, it only takes what, Teddy? 2-3 possessions, and you can eat up 6 to 9 points by just hitting a couple. And again, Duke's not going to care about it if they're up 30 and you make a run and hit 2 to 3 straight three-pointers in the last 2 minutes of the game. Should be some interesting stuff to watch, depending on which way you wager. Can VCU slay the Giant? You say, Donnie, what do you mean Giant? It's only a 1-point line out there in the favor of UCF. Well, you see Taco Fall, 7'6" out there. You're going to have to meet. You're going to have to match up. You're going to have to get him in foul trouble in order to get away from that tough defense that UCF plays. The one thing that's interesting about this game, Teddy, is if we take a look, UCF 17-12 against the spread, 3-1 in neutral courts. We get all that. But the key ingredient here is a bone bruise to guard Marcus Evans. He is probable to play, but from all indications, Teddy, not 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Taco Fall's a different animal than just about anyone else in college basketball. And I think we'd all be interested in seeing Fall against Zion. That would be a matchup worth noting. But UCF's not the chalk here. It's really been bouncing around between Pick'em. Now UCF -1 as we speak. It's been bouncing around Pick'em all week, and that hasn't changed. This is a team that, was pretty much a bubble team just a couple of weeks ago. Then they won at Houston on the road, and they beat Cincinnati at home, and boom. They're in. Then again, since that time, they got slapped around in the AAC conference tournament. And I worry about their offense. Defensively, man, they're solid. But, it's a backcourt-led offense for UCF. B.J. Taylor and Aubrey Dawkins are two guys who can light up from the perimeter. That's not what I want necessarily against VCU. VCU's got an elite defense. They won the regular season title in the A-10 by a couple of games. They got upset by Rhode Island in the tournament, but this is a team that's 10th in the country in defensive points allowed per game, 38% shooting allowed for the season, 28% below 28% from three-point range, and they force a bunch of turnovers as well. I worry definitely about ECU's ability to score. Not ECU, about UCF's ability to put the biscuit in the basket for this one. Slightest of leans towards VCU.
Yeah, what's interesting also about that, Teddy, is the design of play for UCF, because you've seen it. If Taco Fall stays out of foul trouble, they're elite on defense. But when he leaves the court, they still do have size, but not the type size of whenever you get into the lane, it doesn't matter where you are. You're shooting rainbows to try to get it up there because it's going to come out of nowhere and try to swat the shot. So it should be a good day of betting, depending on which way you're going on some of these games. So hopefully we helped you out here on that betting show. Off the mic, Teddy. We usually talk maybe some little bit of controversy here, but today we're thinking about good vibes here. What you enjoy outside of betting the actual tournament. Do you enjoy the camaraderie with your friends? You enjoy, watching the game by yourself, down at the casino, whatever it is. The one thing I always enjoy, Teddy, is I like the microcosm of the sport where it comes down to the end of the game. And these aren't professional players. They're not 25, 30 years old, been there, done that. They're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Some of these guys will be superstars over the next 2 weeks, and they'll remember these memories forever. I love when it comes down to the end, making the one-and-one shot, making the big three-point shot. I think it's fantastic theater to watch. And also, Teddy, you get some coaching environment type stuff with Tom Izzo losing his mind yesterday saying, get right out there or get off the court.
Yeah, Izzo was pretty funny. As long as it's not me that he's yelling at, but, he went nuts on Aaron Henry yesterday. His quote really stood out to me. What's wrong with challenging a kid that makes some mistakes? Aaron Henry, trust me, did some things that you can't do as a starter on a top 5 team at the end of your freshman year. They were effort related. I did get after him. He did respond. He did make a couple of big buckets. He did make some big free throws, but that's not enough. It's one and done time. The my bads are out the window. I thought that line is great. It's one and done time. The my bads are out the window. And to see coaches go nuts, yeah, it's always fun. What do I love about March Madness? Look, March Madness is spring. March Madness is, you know what I mean? It's like a rite of spring. It's a rite of passage every year. That to me is like, and to be in Vegas, I'm telling you, Super Bowl weekend is fantastic. March Madness is better. So, I mean, that's to me the excitement in town, the coming of spring, and the great bets we can make. That's what I love about this time of the year.
Yep. The only my bad on that betting show today, Teddy, is we didn't get you in and out in under 20 minutes. We went just over the time limit, but that's okay when we're giving the good information out there. That betting show, March 22nd, 2019, your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. Big day in the tournament. Teddy and I will be back on Monday to go over all the carnage over the weekend. He's Teddy Savransky. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Seymour, Right Side VP. Thanks for tuning into that betting show. We'll catch you on Monday, fellas.